What's up, guys? We are back with another educational video, and this week we are talking about protein and heart disease. So I was scrolling my Twitter feed and somebody sent me a study that was published in Nature basically saying, hey, does this show that high protein diets are bad for heart disease? Now, the paper was pretty complicated. What they claim is that high protein diets can exacerbate endothelial dysfunction and damage through macrophage mTOR activation. Whew! That's a lot of big words. Basically, mTOR is a complex in many cells. It gets activated by things like protein, insulin, resistance training, and some other stuff. It's actually part of the anabolic pathway. But in macrophages, it seems to possibly contribute towards macrophage infiltration into the endothelium. Now, macrophage infiltration into the endothelium is one of the kind of markers of heart disease and CVD progression. Unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is people go A equals B, B equals C, C equals D, D equals E, and so A equals E. It doesn't work like that in nutritional science research, and we have a lot of studies to show that because this isn't a linear pathway. This is a concert, okay? There's a lot of stuff going on in metabolism. You cannot assume that just activating one pathway and showing a mechanism is not the same thing as showing an outcome. So I just want to be clear, what we're talking about right now is mechanistic data. We can show mechanisms, but those don't always lead to outcomes. Now, what's the outcome? The outcome we're looking at is CVD, heart disease. So getting back to it, basically what they did was they did a study in mice where they took atherogenic prone mice. So these are mice that are knockout, certain APO knockouts, and I think LDLR knockouts. So these are mice that they get heart disease based on their genetic knockouts, okay? They took these mice and they either put them on what they called a standard Western diet, which I believe was 15% protein and 43% fat, or a high protein Western diet they called. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with their high protein diet because it's like 46% protein and 43% fat, meaning it's 11% carbohydrate. I mean, that's almost ketogenic. There's confounding stuff here because when you are replacing one nutrient with another, people who eat high protein diets don't necessarily eat high fat. In fact, if we look at a lot of the data out there, a lot of people who eat high protein diets actually eat a moderate or lower amount of fat. Now, some people would say, well, most people who eat high protein diets are eating 30% or more fat. That's fine. 30% is actually still a relatively low fat diet based on the standard American diet or standard Western diet. So I have a little bit of a gripe with that, but I get why they did it that way. They were standardizing fat and protein. Okay, fine. But by having a low carbohydrate content, you're also reducing fiber intake. Fiber has been shown to have a cardioprotective effect. So would that influence the results? Who knows? Interestingly, what they found was the mice on the high protein diet didn't gain as much weight as the mice on the standard Western diet, but they increased macrophage mTOR activation and lesion formation compared to the standard Western diet. And they also supported this by doing another knockout model where they knocked out a protein called Raptor. Raptor binds with mTOR and is part of the signaling cascade, and if you knock out Raptor, mTOR is basically inactivated. And in these Raptor knockout mice, they found that they were protected from this effect. Oh my God, this must mean protein causes heart disease, right? Simmer down. First off, mouse study. Second off, you're dealing with a mouse study with multiple knockouts. We're talking about mechanistic data. It's useful. The problem with mechanistic data is you should not make conclusions based on mechanistic data alone. And when we look at the actual outcome data in humans, we simply don't see this. So a great example is the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is a high protein diet. It's above 30% protein. Now you can argue, well, they were using 46% protein. Maybe it's when you get above, a certain threshold that this happens, but I would be very surprised by that if that was the case. The Mediterranean diet is a high protein diet, moderate fat, moderate carbohydrate diet. Oh my God, a balanced diet, imagine that. And in studies, it consistently performs very well in terms of reducing the incidence of heart disease. In fact, in a recent meta-analysis, of a few different named diets, they found it was actually the best diet for cardiovascular disease, for improving cardiovascular disease outcomes. If protein was going to cause cardiovascular disease, we would expect to see, regardless of anything else, a diet higher in protein perform worse. But that isn't what we see. What we consistently see is high protein diets that are high in saturated fat do not perform as well with regard to heart disease. What we consistently see is that high protein diets that are also high in saturated fat do not perform as well as diets that are lower in saturated fat. But when you stratify for high protein and low saturated fat, like you have in the Mediterranean diet, you see very good performance outcomes. So forgive me if I don't get really excited over a mouse study where they have like 3 different knockouts and they're feeding them an 11% carbohydrate diet and they're looking at really tiny mechanistic data. I'm just not that worried about it. Now, if we started seeing outcome data in humans start to support this, then I would be more worried. But that's just not what we see. All right, guys, if you like this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you click the links in the description to check out more of our educational material, as well as our nutrition coaching app, Carbon Diet Coach. Customized nutrition coaching for less than $10 a month. Download it, subscribe, check it out. You guys will love it. I'll catch you next week.